Recording in progress.
All right, good morning. Welcome to Project Next. This is a Smart Stafford initiative. I'm Tom Snyder. I'll be the MC for the first part of the ceremony today. I'm the executive director of RIoT. We're an economic development focused organization that is really proud to have started doing work in this region and have plans to continue to expand and broaden, and we'll talk a little bit about that today. But really why we're here today, and we have a number of distinguished guests and panelists and excitement planned over the next 2 hours, is to kind of celebrate an opportunity that is in front of this region to really capitalize on what we're calling the data economy. The fact is that the economy is heavily steered by advances in technology. And as these advances happen, it creates new industry, it creates opportunity, it creates jobs, but there are interesting things that need to happen in order to capitalize on these opportunities. And one of that is infrastructure. I'm going to talk about a smart city test bed that is being kicked off and kind of having a grand opening today that will be an important resource to the area, but also entrepreneurial support resources, things that help you understand what are these emerging technologies, how can I use them, how can I improve my existing business, or how can I start something new. And Project Next is really about looking forward, looking at the future of opportunity across the Rappahannock region. We've got partners here from King George, from Fredericksburg, from Stafford, many industry partners that are involved in this smart city test bed, as well as looking at how to create the new jobs, create the new opportunities here in the region. To put a little bit finer point on it, I'll describe from our view what we're seeing kind of in the technology space and why we're so excited about what's happening here in the region. We are at a point in time, if you think back a number of years to when analog radio became digital at the same time that this thing called the internet kind of came about, it changed the game for every business. We went from a landscape of finding people in the yellow pages to a landscape of finding people through search, right? Any business, I don't care what kind of business you are, what world that you work in, today needs a website. It needs an email address. It needs what we think of as very basic technology and communication tools. And we're at an interesting point now through advances in cloud computing that allow analytics to happen at scale at very low cost, and wireless data communications to happen at scale at very low cost, and that scale is getting faster and faster. There's a 5G node that's just been lit up on the corner of this property, which we're really excited about, right? We've heard about the hype of these technologies. Well, what they really mean is we can now move data wherever it is that it needs to be moved, and we can analyze it with artificial intelligence, with machine learning, protected by cybersecurity. All the buzzwords that you hear, these are happening at scale at very low cost. The data economy, as I call this, is based on creating information in the world in which we live. Data is created by sensors, and there have been advances in nanofabrication technologies and the ability to make sensors that are tiny. They require almost no energy. They can self-power themselves through harvesting energy in the environment around them to create information that we can move with high-speed wireless networks that we can analyze on these cloud resources. And then in reverse, we can take the results of that analytics and we can start to automate decision-making. We get to the point where cars can drive themselves, where things can happen automatically in a way that augments our abilities as humans to do the thing, to solve the problems that we want to solve without getting bogged down as much in the work, because we can leverage these really smart systems. And anything that you hear with the term smart in front of it, whether it's a smart watch, a smart road, a smart farm, a smart Stafford, these are the advanced technologies of Internet of Things and analytics and automation that one day we'll just go back to calling our watches and our roads and our cities again. But the point is, it's a fundamental shift, and because all of these things can happen at scale at very low cost, anyone can be an entrepreneur. You don't need to be part of the federal government directly, or a major multinational company, or a deep-pocketed Tier 1 research university. Almost anyone can participate in this new economy by leveraging these tools and resources. But nobody does that alone. It's really important to collaborate. And why we're here today is to talk about really interesting new resources for entrepreneurs to collaborate upon with the Smart City Testbed and with all the partners that are participating as sponsors, as supporters, as technology providers. Our organization, RIoT, has been working in this space for a number of years. We're based out in North Carolina and excited to be expanding up into Virginia to do just that, to help be a connecting resource for the region, helping people that have great ideas to find the technology partners to support them. These platforms that I talked about, sensing and energy harvesting and communications and analytics, these are things you don't need to reinvent. These are things that are out there and they're available, but you need to connect and find the ways to partner. To partner across the public sector and the private sector to get broadband to every resident of our region so that everyone can participate. There are some barriers to entry if you don't have good internet access, and we're working on how do we improve that for everyone. And then connect the technology platforms, the cloud platforms, the sensor platforms, all these different things together, and then provide facilitated mentorship, facilitated education, job training, workforce development, the things that enable people to take the opportunities that technology provides and then to capitalize on that and to become a growing and sustainable region. To not feel like if you live in this area, you have to out-commute somewhere to find a good job, but instead, as we've discovered during the pandemic, well, with the right resources, with the right connectivity, we can work from anywhere. Well, not only can we work from anywhere, we can innovate from anywhere. And so we're really excited to be here today. We're going to have an opportunity through this first session this morning to take some questions and answers from folks that are in the audience. We have a couple of short talks first, but if you're interested in engaging and participating, we want this to be a dialogue. This isn't just a monologue of a bunch of people talking to a virtual audience. This is an opportunity to really connect and engage. So post your questions into the chat window, and we will take those a little bit later this morning. We'll have an opportunity to talk to the others that are sitting at this table with me. With that, though, again, really excited to be here. I do want to thank a number of sponsoring organizations, and you've seen them in the program. We're going to have some distinguished guests coming up a short while from now that are going to be involved in the formal ribbon cutting of the Smart City Testbed, and you'll hear more about that program. But without further ado, what I'd like to do is bring forward a pair of guests from US Ignite. US Ignite is a national organization that helps communities to capture this new economy, to look at smart city opportunities. How do we become smarter cities, smarter communities? You don't have to be a big urban center to be smart. As I said, this is something that can happen anywhere. So I'd like to introduce Glenn Rickard, who is the founder and CTO of US Ignite. Glenn is an accomplished entrepreneur himself. He's founded several successful startups, including what may be regarded as the very first internet service provider in this country. He's been a liaison between DARPA and the White House, involved in innovation and this concept that technology kind of steers the economy for many, many years. So, Glenn, very happy to have you here and your colleague, Scott Turnbull. Scott is the Director of Technology for US Ignite. Glenn will be joining us remotely. Scott is here remote. Scott has spent his whole career at the intersection of technology and education and nonprofits. And so, Glenn, I'm going to hand it off to you to let you talk a little bit about your view of the future and collaboration.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. It's really a pleasure to virtually be there today. Sorry I couldn't be there physically. Everybody, Tom Snyder is really a force of nature in making high technology happen in an area. And we've been very happy to work with him in his native areas down a little bit south, and that we're delighted to see the expansion of this kind of energy up into Stafford County, the Rappahannock region. It's really a very blessed region from the standpoint of technology. It turns out that the early internet actually began growing right in out of DC. And although it was invented on the West Coast out of UCLA and some folks there, the first actual uses of it came from the Department of Defense, the National Security Agency, some of the Virginia organizations, such as the Cybersecurity Division that's now at Quantico, Virginia. And that area has really been the epicenter for a lot of the innovation that's happened, including the headquarters for DARPA, where I served as a program manager for a while. So it's got to be exciting to be that close to and part of a region that's really making a significant difference there. I have a few slides I'd like to go and show you today that really kind of help to tell this story. Let me see if I can share my screen here, and hopefully you can see that. So a picture here of Fredericksburg, and kind of let's get going here. Let's see, new slide. US Ignite is a nonprofit. We're a 501c3. If you have some additional money you would like to donate to us, we would be glad to have that. It would go to a very good purpose, and you can deduct it on your taxes. We accelerate the smart and connected community movement, and we create value for that entire ecosystem by bringing communities into the connected future, creating a path for private sector growth, because we think private sector growth is just as important as the community itself growing, and advancing technology research and deployment. You can see that we're working in about 40 different areas of the country right now at US Ignite. We have 17 people on staff, and we're supporting very smart efforts that are going to each of these locations and doing innovation zones, challenges that are making a difference in terms of drinking water, stormwater, traffic management, all kinds of activities in these areas, including connecting the unconnected, which is one of our newest areas. So I want to just tell you a little story about how some of these things happen. And I'm going to start by talking about the fact that pollution microclimates affect the spread of COVID-19. It's been proven that the COVID-19 particles can travel on air pollution. And in fact, some studies have shown that, especially a study in Italy and Europe, a number of communities, you could predict the infection rate by the direction of the winds coming from infected areas. So seeing this and knowing the pollution microclimates do affect the spread of COVID-19, University of Utah's Carrie Kelly, I'm going to tell a story from Utah in this case, got an NSF award, a framework for understanding air quality in urban environments. So the National Science Foundation, together with an educational institution, got that started. And Utah Ignite, which is the branch, so to speak, of US Ignite in Utah, had a meeting, and her students presented some of the possibilities of better understanding the Utah multi-county mountain-influenced pollution microclimates using some inexpensive sensors that they invented and had manufactured. The Utah Ignite steering group business members included Utopia Fiber and the state of Utah Department of Transportation. And both of those, both Utopia Fiber and the Department of Transportation and Air Quality, agreed to host, provide free connectivity, and help interpret the multi-county deployment. So we can see right there some great cooperation between the private sector, the academic sector, the group acting as Utah Ignite, to be able to make something happen for the community at low cost to them. That resulted in a paper, Air Pollution and COVID-19, the Role of Particulate Matter in the Spread and Increase of COVID-19's Mortality and Morbidity. And that brought in 3 other communities in the US Ignite family, including Kansas City, Cleveland, and Chattanooga, to help replicate that Utah microclimate sensing with state air quality professionals to decrease COVID-19 transmission. And we brought in Digital C, which is a nonprofit, the Enterprise Center, which helps build businesses in Chattanooga, Casey Digital Drive from Kansas City, the 3 academic institutions in those locations. And that resulted in a new company. As you heard from Tom, I've done 5 startups. This last one is US Ignite. It's my first nonprofit startup. But in this case, for the sensors, it was a company called Tetrad Sensor Network Solutions, and they began to further replicate this model in 2020. So these are the kinds of organizations that when you work together, universities, governments, local leaders, for-profits, nonprofits, local carriers, that you can begin to make a significant difference. And I wanted to say, well, why in the Rappahannock region? Why in Stafford County? Well, first of all, the Marine Corps Base Quantico is one of the key areas for high technology in our nation's defense. And that is growing by leaps and bounds and becoming much more important. The FBI Academy is in the area. The US government itself is trying to decentralize out of Washington, D.C., mainly because they don't want the whole government to be able to be taken out by a bombing campaign in Washington, D.C. And it's caused many of the US agencies to move further away from D.C., but still close enough that you could get there for a meeting. And that means that areas like the Rappahannock region are going to be the areas where the government will want to be able to put new facilities. Why not high-tech facilities? And of course, Virginia is one of the leading states for high-tech technology development initiatives like the Commonwealth Cybersecurity Initiative. And a lot of the cables for the globally most used interconnected routes go right through the East Coast of the United States, including having landings in the Rappahannock region here. And you can see, this is a map of all of the main internet cables across the oceans. And you'll notice that the single largest concentration of cables is from the eastern seaboard into Europe. And that eastern seaboard is distributed all the way from Maine down to South Carolina. But you'll notice that cluster of overlapping circles right in the DC and South region, including Quantico, which is another reason that that is such an important place for the US military. US Ignite is also a participant in a new research network that's being constructed by the National Science Foundation. You'll notice there's a blue dot there in Washington, DC, and a line that goes south to Atlanta and goes right through Stafford County. And this is a new terabit per second research network that's intended to be research for the future of the internet. You can see there's a large number of institutions participating in this. You can see below. And you can also see that the US Ignite is listed at the bottom right there of that. So Fabric, Internet 2, US Ignite. This is very exciting, and it's going to be an opportunity for high-tech organizations in the Rappahannock region to be able to participate in that. It's got some great educational assets right there. Educational assets are great because it generates new students, new blood, new ideas, new energy, new research. RIoT is great to have there. They've really proven themselves. They started in Raleigh, North Carolina, really were a major factor in the Research Triangle area in making that very successful. And having RIoT participating in your area is just a fantastic ability to take a successful effort and replicate that. Scott Turnbull, who's going to talk right after me here in a couple of minutes, is really a hidden asset for you. He's only about an hour south in Richmond. And he was one of the first folks into US Ignite. He knows all about smart connected communities. He's been integral to that effort, couldn't have done it without him. And so having him there physically so close and being able to contact and work with you folks is going to be an incredible asset to be able to have success there. So what are the success factors that help transition research into practice? Well, we want to take a look at firsts, innovations. There's 5 F's with transformative community impact. What's the fit of those new innovations? How do they fit the region and community accepted needs? And these really affect each other. The first may actually create new community needs, and community needs may create new firsts. We also want to make sure there's a broad support of ecosystem. I'll talk about that more on the next slide. facilitation with events like the one you're at right now to create events and opportunities to contribute from lots of people. Funding, there's lots of funding, especially in Virginia, from the public sector, the private sector, and foundations, because there are so many tech organizations in Virginia. And featuring national exposure and targeted referrals, which US Ignite is pretty good at making happen. So sources of support, I would look around the people there in the room with you and the people you know. Political leadership. Political leaders talk about this, it's much more likely to happen. Second, the local private sector and chambers of commerce. They would like to have other complementary organizations around them helping to create this high-tech atmosphere. Third, local banks have a responsibility to their communities they serve through the Community Reinvestment Act. Fourth, accelerators and incubators like RIoT, very important. The academic institutions I talked about. Right now, EDA has a build-to-scale matching grants that are increasing in size thanks to COVID-19. It's a really great opportunity for entrepreneurship across the country, but especially in your area. The CARES Act and other funding is meant to rekindle businesses and make new ones. The U.S. Department of Defense Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation has funding for community support, and because of the military organizations in your area, including Quantico, there's money available for projects in the areas that those defense organizations serve. And National Science Foundation has a Smart and Connected Community Funding Program. And of course, there are also local developers, philanthropies, and state initiatives like the Commonwealth Cyber Security Initiative that can do that. So that's what I wanted to mention, but to make it even more particular, I'd like to turn the stage over to Scott Turnbull. Scott is somebody I've worked with for many years. I have a very high regard for. And of course, as I said a moment ago, is right there in the region. Scott.
Thank you very much, Glenn. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Especially as a Central Virginian, I'm truly excited to see this effort begin to emerge here in my home territory. I've worked with over 40 communities across the country for the last 5 years who are developing smart city strategies. And I want to talk specifically about some of the things they did that made them wildly successful in their efforts. There's really 3 things that they focused on. That was intentional partnerships, it was workforce development, and it was establishing a two-way pipeline in and out of the region for businesses and federal funding. What I'm struck by is how similar we go in cycles with what we need to do in our communities. Glenn started the internet. He's one of the followers of the internet, so I was very privileged to have him as my mentor. He established the first internet exchange point in the early 80s, which just meant that people on separate academic networks couldn't talk to each other before that. He installed an exchange so now they can truly begin to talk to one another. And we're at that point again, where now it's a human network. Of these local area partnerships. How many entrepreneurs have you met that have said, I met my partner at a local meetup group, at a local Chamber of Commerce event, at my local university? Reddit got started in the library at UVA between 2 people who met in the library talking about PHP and different things like that. So these intentional area partnerships are an absolute great investment for increasing the surface area between your entrepreneurs and your innovators in your area. You need to take that first step of reducing your sharp elbows, which I know you've done here, but starting isn't enough. You need to develop that as a discipline over time, and that's what all of these communities have done. They've intentionally kept up their regular meetings. They've formed steering groups to help determine what their regional strategic initiatives are. They've included people who have been excluded from that conversation in the past, and they're diligent about maintaining those points of contact and evolving not only the discussion, but who's in that discussion, what groups are represented, because when we talk about representation and diversity, we're talking about who has access to the economy. If 100% of your population doesn't have access to the economy, you're not tapped out to your full potential. So bringing people in to start new businesses and giving them the greatest capability possible to begin working together and starting new economies is absolutely vital and one of the big signs of a successful community. I'll point to Greater Chattanooga Economic Partnership. They had several years, they have quite a long, went from the dirtiest city in America in the 60s to a tech startup hub in the United States, a great example with gigabit internet coverage almost ubiquitously. They have a 16 county partnership with $500 million of stimulus. They were able to generate $4.8 billion of commitments to projects in that area between 2016 and 2020. That's an absolutely wonderful return on investment based on relationships alone. They've also put their flag in the ground for workforce development. They have 4 areas of development, but those can be any area that you decide is your strategic priority in the area. For them, it was advanced manufacturing, automotive, food and beverage, and and back office and headquarters. Sorry, I almost forgot there. And in thinking through these, they're all IT professions. That's something we have to internalize. Everything is an IT profession, whether that's logistics and supply chains with food and beverage, or service and serving people remotely, whether that's back office supplies and databases with HQ. It might be machining and advanced manufacturing with 3D printing or vacuum form molding. Those are all technology pursuits, and the depth of IT skills in your region absolutely makes you, 1, resilient, and 2, successful at starting new economies, because your entrepreneurs can identify people who can do work for them or with them throughout their entire process. It's absolutely the critical piece for a smart community. We have access to capital. We know that that conversation is incredibly important. Maturing in education in terms of financial literacy, also very important. Entrepreneurial skills, very important. But developing the workforce that can actually deliver those services is absolutely vital. There are 2 things I'll say quickly about the new economy that everyone talks about when they get concerned about automation. I am not concerned about automation because we have 2 realities. On one hand, we say all the jobs are going away to computers and nobody's going to have a job anymore. On one hand, on the other hand, we say we can't fix anything, we can't install the devices we need, we can't get to that work. They both cannot be true. Just the device management, installation, management of services in the field, policy, data management, all of these services built up around the automation that is to come is a generation worth of work if you are aligned correctly with the skills that need to be fed into that economy. We all just had an object lesson with the pandemic of what can happen to a community that has to pivot. All of the communities with deep technical skills, the ability to switch to online ordering, to reach their customers through remote access, educate their students through remote learning, they were able to pivot, and their impact was much, much lower, and their economy stayed more intact than communities who could not do that. That is the product of a broad-based workforce development program that got people digital literacy, financial literacy skills. They had known each other from these Chamber of Commerce events and from these startup events, and it really allowed them to pivot and adapt quickly. And the last bit I'll say is this two-way pipeline for federal funding, but also corporate funding and other partner funding that might be out there. Having your house in order in terms of your procurement policy. Maybe you have a relationship, has it matured to the point that you've entered into a procurement co-op with other counties in the region. That ability for a large business to look at your location and say, I have a common interface for this entire region and their purchasing policies and how to invest money and how to tap into the workforce. When they have that common interface, it lowers their barrier to entry, and they are now incentivized to come and work with you. Pump money into the area. That they need small startups that help support their services in the area. So that creates more cycles of economies for local entrepreneurs who might install devices or run a data center or do any number of other things that large companies will come in to do, especially healthcare companies. So having your house in order in terms of your procurement policies, your interfaces to how to reach people in your community, how to reach the workforce, how to reach entrepreneurs, apply together for federal funding opportunities, the opportunity to actually sit there and talk about representation issues in an intelligent way that has fosters a good conversation to bring people into the market and into the economy who maybe have been excluded before. Again, opens whole new wings of investment strategies and economic development that may not have been present before. They're tapping local anchor institutions, so universities, and I don't want to leave community colleges out of this. Martinsville, Virginia, where my wife is from, they were left behind when the textile and furniture industry left in the 90s. Their economy really crashed, but they went through a purposeful redevelopment and workforce training program centered at their community college on advanced manufacturing. And they chose that one pillar, but it worked out swimmingly for them. They have their economy has come back. They've redeveloped their area in terms of real estate. They can educate at Roanoke or down in UNC in Greensboro. They can really reach, they have a regional area of operation. And the last bit about pipelines is I will say one of the great myths we have been sold in this economy is that rural places in this country cannot be profitable or market. And I'll ask you this, if we can improve the economy in the most remote places in Asia or China or Africa, how is it humanly possible that we cannot develop an economy in even a wise Virginia? With the transatlantic cable and the internet backbone that we have here in Virginia and the extension of that broadband network to the rest of the state, there is no reason why any company in Virginia cannot be an international company. Zero reason. So that is my call to action. Workforce development, maintain a discipline and build a discipline around your community partnerships and keep those up over time, and develop your strategy for outreach to regional partnerships and bringing in money and then getting your businesses to be able to sell their products nationally as well. So thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Glenn. Really inspiring. It is, it's exciting. It's nice when you boil it down to, to those 3 steps or those 5 Fs. But it's hard work. It's not that straightforward. And some of the folks that are leading that effort on that hard work are sitting beside me here. So I'd like to introduce Nick Miner and John Holden and Bill Freehling, who are respectively the economic development and tourism directors for King George, Stafford County, and Fredericksburg, respectively. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show. What I'd like to do is ask each of you to just briefly introduce yourselves and your region, and then we'll get into some discussion with everybody up here.
Thank you, Tom. Yes, I'm Nick Miner, Director of Economic Development and Tourism for King George County. King George is pretty small, 26,000 people located in the county, but we do have one of the largest employers in the region, and NSWC Dahlgren, that we proudly represent everywhere we go. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, John.
Tom, thank you, and thanks to everyone. Thanks for our guests. John Holden, Director of Economic Development and Tourism in Stafford County, of course, the host today, but more importantly, a partner with Nick and my friend Bill to help develop an ecosystem for entrepreneurs in the greater Rappahannock region.
Hi, I'm Bill Freehling, the Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the City of Fredericksburg. It's great to be here today. I'd like to thank John and his team for really spearheading this effort and for putting this together, and his friends at RIoT, Tom and your team. It's been great working with you all. And I think that there's great things to come for our entire region, and we'll certainly stronger working together. So this is a great example of that. So thank you.
All right, thanks to each of you. John, let's start with you. To Scott's point about intentional partnerships and a regional thinking. Tell us a little bit about kind of the origin of some of the things that are reaching a milestone today, what the Smart City Testbed is, and how you've kind of worked to start to bring together a coalition of partners.
Thanks, Tom. Yes, I think it was Scott, but also Glenn mentioned that at the end of the day, people have to interact, people have to get together. It's been a challenge over the last 14 months, but great entrepreneurs are in pairs, quite frankly. A series of 3 or 4 events. Literally, I met one of your colleagues, former colleagues, in an event in D.C. Said, "Wow, you have an interesting program. What you do about entrepreneurship?" I've been here 3 years. I was just about 8 months in, and I thought, how do we do entrepreneurship in this region and in Stafford? And I got to know Sarah, and then got to know RIoT. Another event or meeting I was at was, well, I'll share later, but I met a gentleman by the name of Dave Erie at the Virginia Center for Innovative Technology, and he started talking about what they wanted to do in smart city technology, and we started talking about what our plans were in Stafford for a new urban environment in what we call downtown Stafford and smart Stafford. And it occurred to me then in another meeting where someone mentioned about the data economy. It wasn't you actually, it was someone else. But and I said, you know, that's cyber, that's where we are, Quantico and the cyber economy we have here. And smart cities are all about data, and Tom talks about data, and I was like, this all has to come together, right? So just so happened one more meeting, an interaction with some people, a regional group called Go Virginia, and I said, would you help us put something together? And lo and behold, we started talking with Bill and Nick, and we had the pilot project. And we look forward to now, literally today, in literally maybe 30 or 40 minutes, we're going to cut a ribbon in front of Virginia Smart Community Testbed, which is a CIT program physically located now here in Stafford. But more than that, we're going to invite RIoT and his team and Tom to be a part of what Bill and Nick do in their communities to build that entrepreneurship network, that ecosystem out of that test bed as a place where companies can come and test those new technologies, those new products and services, but also a place where we can, post-COVID, get together and get on the road and meet in King George and downtown Fredericksburg and talk with entrepreneurs, talk with business people, bring in finance people, bring other people, and make those sparks happen. That is really the start of new ideas and new business.
Fantastic. So, Nick, I'll turn to you. We've had a number of conversations over the last year and conducted an interesting, I don't know if I'll call it an experiment, but an activity in your region where we did a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats kind of analysis. We learned some things from there. I know that you're heavily involved in some efforts to increase broadband connectivity, to build relationships with Dahlgren Naval Base. Talk about some of the assets in King George and some of kind of where you see the future of plugging into this larger region.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So King George, and I've said this since I've started there, I've always said that from an economic development standpoint, it's a blank canvas, right? So I looked at the assets that the county has as far as river frontage, the research and development base, the transportation network, and then the investment going into the new bridge that crosses over to Maryland. I said, well, this is a place where if we have the right strategies, that we can really have a great economic development success story. Is it going to look like Northern Virginia, Arlington, or Loudoun, or Fairfax? No, but it's going to be unique to our region. And when John reached out to me about doing entrepreneurship ecosystem, I was like, this is exactly in line with where I want to go with it. Because the way I see it is that, we have this agricultural or agrarian sort of economy, but we also have this R&D economy. So how do we make those meet? And when he mentioned that RIoT has this agritech side to it, I said, well, this is perfect for us. Because we have this R&D base that's creating all these types of sensors, weapon systems, all this great technology that's interfaced with data. And we also have a 40-acre greenhouse that could potentially be a test bed for a lot of the things that they do in Dahlgren, or a lot of the things that RIoT does, and all the investors and the network that you guys have. So let's just sort of see if we can bring these things together and see where it goes. You can't really make an entrepreneur stay in your county, right? I don't expect these entrepreneurs to say, oh yeah, King George is exactly where I want to be and grow my business. But if that technology is coming out of my county, then eventually they will land there. Eventually we will recruit the workforce, and we will start seeing more and more investment. It's going to take a little bit of time because we are rural and we are lacking some infrastructure from a certain standpoint, but eventually it's going to come our way. So my whole thinking about this is much more long-term. I'm looking at what does King George look like 10 years, 15 years down the road, and I'm trying to make that investment now so that we can see that prosperity much later down the road.
One of the things I love about this start of the regional partnership is how each of the areas together have very complementary strengths, industry sectors, things. In Fredericksburg, obviously, a lot of strength in retail and tourism and food. And, we were down at one of your local restaurants yesterday that has done amazing things pivoting during the pandemic to leverage technology to grow. Bill, talk a little bit about kind of Fredericksburg and your view of the future.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. We're bullish, obviously, about Fredericksburg, but I think it's at the center of a really fast-growing region right between DC and Richmond, and then we consider ourselves kind of the center of the Fredericksburg region too, with being in between Stafford and Spotsylvania and King George and Caroline, and we've got a very authentic sense of place with our downtown starting its development in 1728. And it's a very walkable, beautiful, authentic community, or original sort of mixed-use community where you can live there in beautiful 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st century homes, but walk to great restaurants and art galleries and trails. And we're trying to maximize the fact that we're on the Rappahannock River with some investments along the riverfront and Riverfront Park, and seeing quite a bit of downtown development of late as people choose to live down there. We've got a new baseball stadium that we're proud of that the Fredericksburg Nationals are home to. But we've also got really a diverse economy. You did mention, as far as our healthcare with Mary Washington Healthcare and the University of Mary Washington, and a whole lot of defense contractors and government contractors. And with all the investment that's being made in Interstate 95 and the increased rail capacity and broadband, and as you mentioned, the fiber connectivity, we're very bullish. And obviously, it's been a tough year, but I'm really proud of our businesses and the way that they have pivoted and used technology to get through the pandemic. And you can just sense that things are starting to get back to normal, and there's just a lot more foot traffic, and I think good things are to come, and certainly very much value our relationship with John and Nick and our colleagues in Spotsylvania and Caroline as well. I think we are stronger working together, and we all do have our own strengths that we can work together and as a region. So I appreciate this effort to bring this together today.
Fantastic, thanks. So one of the things that we've observed over the years is that technology applies fairly horizontally across all industry sectors. It's often something that's high tech. It's often actually the federal government might be the earliest adopters of some new experimental technology. And so this region, I think, is very, very well positioned with historic strength in government contracting and Department of Defense work and so on. But these technologies then, they trickle out across every industry. And what are areas for any of you that you want to highlight that you're starting to see those interesting kind of horizontal transfers of, hey, this new sector is starting to really grow, and what opportunities might that provide for folks maybe who've worked in that contracting sector for a long time that are ready to try something new?
I'll jump in there. This whole idea around smart city technology is obviously we're opening the smart community test bed, but we're seeing a lot of I see a lot of potential in that. We have a number, the latest number is upwards to 50 businesses in Stafford that work in cyber technology and generally government contracting. There's opportunities there, and I certainly don't mean to speak for someone's business. They know better than I do, but there's opportunities for those kinds of businesses to think maybe differently, or to talk to an entrepreneur who has an idea about a sensor or about a new way to do something different, and put those two together, right? That's the real opportunity I see here in Stafford, is that kind of connections with our existing businesses and entrepreneurs to, I think it was Scott, maybe it was Glenn, that talked about still getting people together, right? And we look forward to doing that safely going forward here. But it's those kinds of opportunities that I see, again, with the test bed here particularly, in Stafford is around that urban smart city technology, sensor development, whether it be flood sensors or air filter sensors, and those kinds of things, and the data that goes behind it, and securing that data so that it's used appropriately. That's where those two sparks could come together and make a new product or a new service in Stafford.
Yeah. So just to sort of add to that, when I look at it from a King George perspective, as we talk about automation, so as automation rolls into farming and that becomes even more high tech, as we start to see more infrastructure as far as broadband deployed throughout rural areas, these technology is going to start being integrated within farming. So what does that look like, right? And how can we get ahead of that? Because these things are going to take significant investment into our communities as well. You think of just farming, but there's a lot that goes into that type of operation. And as technology gets incorporated, it's sort of who are those entrepreneurs? Who is going to be interested in that? What does growing food look like for our future? And then what other crops can you do that can potentially be industrialized or incorporated in the manufacturing side of things? So those are the type of things I'm sort of looking at. Especially if you start looking at like industrial hemp and things and those types of uses. And then all the technology and sensors that go into trying to develop higher yields and making sure that there's no stormwater runoff that runs into the beautiful rivers that surround our community. So there's a lot that we could definitely touch on and expand on as we look to the future.
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I think just as far as some of the emerging sectors in our area, certainly you're starting to see a lot of distribution centers crop up, and starting to have some conversations about data centers creeping down from Northern Virginia. And certainly healthcare, as Mary Washington Healthcare continues to expand, and HCA and the VA clinic is building the largest veterans outpatient clinic in the country here in Spotsylvania County. So those are some of the emerging sectors, I think. And then just as far as one of the sort of subtle opportunities, I think, is just the growth of teleworking. We have a pretty high percentage of our workforce commutes out, and with the ability to work from home, or at least partially from home, I think that's driving some of the growth that we have here, and I think that'll create just more opportunities for local businesses to serve that daytime population, and for entrepreneurs to create new businesses based around that. And certainly, you need good broadband connectivity to do that in an effective way. So. I think we're fortunate that we have fairly good broadband connectivity here, but obviously we always would look to improve upon that.
I think it's interesting, mentioning both distribution centers and data centers specifically. When you think about the rise of the internet age, the places that were the most successful were the ones with the strongest compute. So who had the most compute power? And really, as we move into this data economy, it's about latency. It's about how can we instantaneously do things, right? One day it will be quaint to tell our grandchildren that maps used to be this static thing you looked at that showed how things were connected to each other, but that they didn't include real-time traffic information, or how long the line is at the restaurant, or is the tennis court being used right now. Like, putting real-time information into everything is important, and a big piece of that is how close are you to that data center. There's more and more edge compute and things that are happening to reduce latency for mission-critical stuff. Or how quickly can I get those goods, right? Amazon's down to 2-hour delivery, I think, now, and working to be faster. How can we get closer and closer to real-time automation of everything? And so to have those assets in the region, if you're an entrepreneur thinking about starting a new business, and you can tap into those kind of foundational building blocks, is really valuable and important. It's exciting.
I'd add, and this is something, Bill, you and I haven't talked about, but the idea of the new retail economy that will be happening, not just the delivery side, but the product and the experience side. People are going to want to come to a place like a downtown Fredericksburg and experience the place and touch products, see products, not the basic home products, soaps and that kind of, well, actually soaps, yes, but paper products, but the things that people want to experience, right? And the new twist will be the ability to use your phone or use a device at the store to customize that product to what the customer wants, whether it be a certain type of soap or a certain type of perfume or a certain color sock, and then have that product literally delivered to your home the next day. So the stores get smaller, the inventory isn't there, but the device and the technology allows that to be what I call the new retail economy.
Yeah, just to add to that real quick, you would think that 2020, as far as like local budgets, would have been a really challenging year, and it was in a lot of ways. But if you look at the sales tax revenue that all of our localities had during 2020, it's never been higher. And that's, I think, almost primarily due to people buying stuff online, and then with the deal that the state did with Amazon a few years ago, collecting internet sales taxes. And so it just shows that just the game has changed for how we shop, and has a profound impact on the revenue structure for local governments, and so actually our budgets are all doing much better than I think most of us thought that they would, and I think that's largely attributable to the shift in online shopping, and that's going to be really impactful for our region and every other region.
So one of the areas that's interesting is that we have these technology tipping points, we have opportunities to collaborate, and we also have, to the point that Scott made about connecting into federal funding, we have this massive stimulus opportunity, much of that earmarked for broadband, for economic development and things, and there's an opportunity to do things that are truly transformational. How excited are you right now about the timing of things coming together, and maybe that there is a true silver lining on the back of this pandemic?
I'd jump on Scott's comments and maybe like to add more, but workforce training and retraining is a critical part of that stimulus. At least that's where we're thinking right now. And again, it's all happening so fast. But we're looking at ways to maybe use some of that funding in conjunction with other workforce training programs that are most often targeted to businesses, as they should be. But these funds could help us target them to the individuals that were actually impacted, that maybe want to retrain themselves for a new distribution job or a tech job where they're actually moving a device as opposed to moving products, right? So that's one of the areas we're looking at for some of those new stimulus dollars.
So I guess if I can make a comment about it, I think right now is, when I just think about it from a telework standpoint, anybody who's ever lived in this region knows that, for the most part, this has been a bedroom community for the Washington, D.C. area. Well, now that the residents here have sort of gotten a taste of that quality of life, they don't want to commute anymore. So they're going to be looking for opportunities to either start their own business, find another job down here. So as we have this funding, I guess I'm thinking about it from, RIoT here now, right? So now we can facilitate these programs to help these people start their companies and to capitalize on their ideas. The three of us working together, if they have a device or if they have an idea that is geared toward agricultural or agritech, they can look to King George programming. If they have something that's more geared towards retail in downtown areas, they can look to the city of Fredericksburg. If they have something geared towards cybersecurity or high tech model, they can look to Stafford County. So we're building the structure right now to help them be successful much later down in the future. But right now is just that perfect time to market it, get it out that we're doing this, because in 2 to 3 months, if the federal government says, hey, we're going to go to a hybrid schedule of 3 days in the office and 2 off, somebody's going to be like, I don't even want to go in just one day. I've gotten used to being at home, enjoying this quality of life with my family. So I think right now is just a perfect time to just let everybody know this is what we're doing, this is where we're going, this is the type of region, this is the type of county that we want to create for the future. So.
Nick, if I might ask, one of the challenges we've seen in some communities, particularly in some smaller communities, is there is huge opportunity. You talk about agritech, but some folks are intimidated. Maybe are these technologies accessible? Can I retrain myself, and so on? And I think an important step is to see the local government really supporting this initiative and pushing it and so on. But in terms of it's a cultural shift. Anytime there's a big technology change for folks in urban or in rural communities to adopt that, to feel comfortable with it, what are some areas that you're either starting to see change or advocating for kind of acceptance of this technology and welcoming it to take advantage of the opportunity it provides?
Ooh, that's a good question. So definitely in the data side, as far as marketing and sales, definitely, because in my community, while we don't have that large retail side of it, for so long a lot of our businesses have depended upon foot traffic to get their customers. So now they're reaching out to my office and going, how do I optimize my search engine stuff? How do I develop strategies to go after these new customers on the internet? So that's really where I'm seeing it, and I'm trying to, do the best I can to sort of get them the resources and connect them to the people that can help them strategize it. So.
Just briefly, for Stafford, I see it's, I guess everywhere as well, but we're also going to explore the greater pipeline, as it's called. Our community college, Germanic Community College, is developing this pipeline with cyber technology. We have 2 other institutions in our community that are involved with training for cyber technology jobs. So we need to also be aware of that pipeline and how it fits into the whole model, right? There's only so many hours in a day, but at the end, what we have to do is bring those networks together, bring that community together, as you spoke about, so that, you know, part of our jobs in what we do, what I do, is knowing a little bit about a lot. I do know a lot about some things, but it's certainly not training and education systems. I know they're out there, I know what they do, but you know, let the experts get involved in the community so that we can all work together to foster a better and stronger economy.
Yeah, I would add to that. I think that's a good description of the work we do. We know a little about a lot, and we know our regions, and we know the players, and we know how to connect people to opportunities. And certainly, we have got some great partners in the city with Germanic Community College, with FredCat, and the Central Rappahannock Regional Library with the makerspace that they just opened on Princess Anne Street, and certainly the UMW Small Business Development Center, and now with RIoT. And yeah, we certainly can't get it done alone, but there are a lot of resources out there, our city schools in addition. And so we're always looking for opportunities to connect workforce development, the workers with training opportunities. And again, we can't do it alone, so we appreciate the partnerships that we have.
Thanks. And John, I know you need to get up to meet with the governor and get across the street from where we are right now. But before we lose you, any closing remarks you want to make, and then we'll continue the discussion.
Well, yes. I want, and I know Rachel's going to comment, and certainly Scott or Glenn, about the tools around building what are called accelerator programs, which you guys are involved in. So I encourage you to have that conversation here in a moment. But as far as the opportunity in Stafford and our region, it's about a day like today, about bringing all of us together, about obviously post-pandemic, but also having a facility like we have with our state partners with CIT that we're going to go cut a ribbon here in a minute, and bringing it all together. And you know, it takes time. It takes a lot of people to pull together, but I think we're doing that here in this region. I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm going to excuse myself now so we can cut a ribbon for the Smart Community Testbed in Virginia.
All right, thank you, John. And I'll remind those that are still watching online, if you haven't already, please submit any questions. We're going to continue this panel discussion for a bit longer. John mentioned Rachel Newberry, who's the one person we have not introduced yet. So maybe I'll just quickly allow you, Rachel, to introduce yourself and talk about your role at RIoT.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Newberry. I'm the program director at RIoT. I architect a lot of our educational programs, helping people to recognize the opportunities that emerging technology presents, and then also to participate in the data economy. Another huge part of my role is leading the RIoT Accelerator program, and that is a 12-week equity-free program for business owners and entrepreneurs to get connected to educational resources, mentorship, technology assets, and so on to build their businesses and kind of level up. So I'm happy to talk further about that later, but I'll hand it back to you, Tom, for now.
Cool. Thank you, Rachel. And so, as we continue this discussion, John has walked across to the tent for this ribbon cutting. What does this smart community or smart city test bed mean for the greater region? How does that excite you? Maybe Bill, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think it shows. I think it marks us as a progressive, modern region that's welcoming to new ideas and to tech-oriented entrepreneurs. So I think it sends a message out there to entrepreneurs that we're ready to pivot and to stay up to date on the modern technology and be a cutting-edge community that's a welcoming place for entrepreneurs.
Nick?
Yeah, I'm in a rural county, but I guess the only comment I could make is that it makes us look like, or it what it does is it appeals to the companies that are looking for, that are looking to either relocate or expand, right? So we will be seen as, this innovative community or region that is embracing technology, that is embracing the jobs of the future. So that's sort of the way that's the way I definitely will pitch it, or the way I see it moving forward.
I like to think of it, and for those who are not familiar with what this testbed is, I like to think of it as a term that's used in the software world, an application programming interface. So in software, we have this thing called an API, which is kind of the instructions for how can you write a piece of software in a way that it integrates with the other software and it works in that way. And so this Smart City Testbed is really a resource that provides the compute power, the connectivity, the ways to kind of plug in a smart city application to this region with, how can we plug it in, how can we try it, how can we see how it works, with then interested and willing municipal partners in Stafford County and in King George and Fredericksburg that would say, hey, we would love to see what that innovation is. Here's how you plug that in, here's how we test it, and how we try it and see how it works. And the goal is that could eventually become not just a successful venture here in this region, but then through proving it at this test bed, expand to any other community across Virginia and eventually across the United States. And so it really is it's an innovative concept that CIT developed, and while it's here in the region, which is fantastic, it really is a resource for entrepreneurs from anywhere to come and leverage that asset, which is very exciting. I'll just ask back to the room real quick. Do we have any online questions that we can address?
We have a couple questions here. The first one is there a direct connection between entrepreneurship and a profitable and thriving local economy?
Who wants to take a first stab, Bill?
I think that there certainly is. I mean, small businesses are the backbone of our economy. Certainly, we've got some larger employers too, and they're obviously very important for our economy as well. But certainly, small businesses, entrepreneurs are a huge part of our local economy. Even if it's one employee, one person company, or two or three. That adds up and definitely impacts our economy. So, and those companies grow too and become larger employers. And so it's absolutely one of the key parts of our supporting our local economy.
Scott, anything you'd like to add to that? You've worked in a lot of communities.
Well, definitely, it's a backbone for economic stimulus. I think that the intersection of entrepreneurship and community development doesn't just enrich the economy. It enriches the quality of life. It enriches the access to develop more businesses as well. One of the discussed elements of IT is that it's not all just sitting in front of a computer screen anymore. There's a large tradesmanship to IT now, how to install IoT devices, especially in ag tech or roadside sensors, or you don't get that just from reading a book or doing a YouTube tutorial or something like that. You need access to people doing it to give you their practical experience. So that deepening of entrepreneurs within the region, they can exchange that real world experience, that trade craft, and they can really make a resilient economy.
I think two observations I'll make related to this question are that we saw during the pandemic most of the multinational, say, Fortune 50, Fortune 100 companies, their stock prices went up. They were just fine. But it was the small businesses that really were much more dramatically impacted. But because the entire economy was impacted, that just tells me the economy is not Wall Street. The economy is small business. And so, yes, entrepreneurship leading to continued small business growth is foundational to any economy. But the second piece I'll note is that a lot of economic development historically, sometimes it gets coined as big game hunting. Going out and looking for that giant corporation that maybe would open a manufacturing facility or open a large office complex, and there's tax incentives and other kinds of things. But big game, it feeds on grass, and grass are all the small businesses that they eat lunch at or that they shop at and so on. And so really it goes hand in hand. When you have a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, you become an attraction to those large companies, and I think it is very, very complementary. But if you do not have a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem, you're at a major disadvantage to bringing in the big employers.
Could I add something?
Please do.
I agree with what Tom just said about the entrepreneurial ecosystem, having been worked in that area before. One of the big things that the pandemic has shown us is that the tech ecosystem can hold together even if it's somewhat physically separated thanks to the technologies such as the one I'm using to be there with you today. And as a result, a lot of entrepreneurs are looking for quality of life areas. Quality of life areas is now the new amenity that entrepreneurs are seeking out because they can collaborate with their co-workers in many different ways. Now, some things do have to be together in person, but we're seeing that entrepreneurship is being much more diffused throughout the country and with an attention to areas that offer high quality of life. You've got a very nice high quality of life there in the Rappahannock region, and I think that's going to be one of your key factors for success. Thanks for letting me chip in.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Glenn. And I think you're absolutely right. And the pandemic itself accelerated the importance of that quality of life factor, and it will make locations like King George. Quality of life for many is not being within 100 feet of your neighbor, right? And so I think that having that diversity across this entire region is important, and it truly is an asset. Caroline, do we have another question?
The next question we have is, why should our government invest in smart technology when there are potholes and other infrastructures that need fixing?
All right, who wants the first stab at that? Bill?
Well, I mean, certainly we have some core functions as a local government to provide good schools and clean water and pick up the trash and pave the streets and take care of the potholes, as was mentioned, and keep people safe with fire and police protection. Those are always going to be the core functions of a local government. But I think we also have a role in making investments that will shape our communities for years to come, and that will drive additional tax revenue that will allow us to better fill the potholes and provide the education and public safety, et cetera. So while those functions that you mentioned are the key things that we do, I think we have to invest in the future to continue to do those things better and create a better community for the future.
Yeah. So I guess my comment is, what's the ROI, right? So if my community, if King George puts in $5,000 and then there's a tech spinoff that starts to generate $50,000 a year, then that's worth it for me as far as that's a small investment, and obviously the return on investment is great. So as far as as a community, what do we invest in? It's just, are we investing in the right things? I guess time will tell. But at the end of the day, if we're putting in a small amount of money and then on top of that we get 2-3 new businesses, I mean, for me that's a good investment as far as economic development goes. So.
Scott, you and I were chatting recently on this specific topic, and I loved your answer to it. I don't know if you recall that conversation.
I did. It said, because I say this all the time, we're investing in fixing the potholes 10 years from now. You need an economic engine to be able to do that. You need to be able to understand that regional entrepreneurship is full of discovery, but it is not accidental. It is not accidental. So it arrives there through lots of opportunities for discovery, guided partnerships with nonprofits like RIoT, which are absolutely fundamental, I think, to regional partnerships. But potholes will be a problem 10 years from now.
Yeah, and a wise person at the other end of this table once said, people don't come to your region for a lack of potholes. It doesn't mean that that's not an important thing to fix, or I know we're talking metaphorically about potholes. That also means good sewer systems and electric grids and roads and everything else. But by building that tax base, you're able to maintain that much better than we're talking with some communities right now about use of the stimulus funds, and should we just spend all that money on a backlog of maintenance? And to some degree you want to do some of that, But if you're not using some of it to invest in the future, then all you're doing is deferring to have another maintenance problem down the road.
And we can go and connect you up with a US Ignite project in San Diego called Road Reader that allows you to detect potholes before they even get created. You can fix them where they're still fixable with a slurry seal, and that way prevent potholes and save money on your pothole budget.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. We've also worked with a company called Good Roads, I think it's called. Yeah, that they mount cameras on the underside of the trash trucks, and so the trash trucks navigate every city street every week. They do vision analytics, and they can detect road problems and repair them much more affordably as they're just beginning versus once they become a big problem. So there are interesting technology solutions that are out there. That company's out of Charlotte, North Carolina, I believe. Caroline, anything else in the queue?
Thanks, Tom. Bringing in the big employers creates opportunity, but if they don't bring people with them, it will and can be disruptive to the ongoing talent pool and the customers they serve. High-tech talent isn't created on demand. What is being done to ensure the talent pool is full prior to the planned explosive growth to avoid the disruptive entrance of new big and small employers?
Great question. Nick?
Yeah, so that's a that's a loaded question, and it's going to be a loaded answer. So it's so many things. So it's workforce training, it's housing development, it's taxes, it's regulations, it's the entire part of the governmental process, is really what you have to maintain and look at to really answer that question. So what I would say is that, if that's something that you're concerned of, and I'm not trying to put it back like on the person that's answering the question, but be involved in your community. If these are things that you are concerned with, join the EDA, join these types of committees that monitor these types of things, because that's that's the entire governmental process when you start thinking about how you maintain tech talent. Again, workforce, it's the education system, it's the regulatory environment, and it's housing. So it's hard to answer all those, when it comes to recruiting tech talent. But that's the general answer to that question. It's everything from an economic development standpoint.
Yeah, I think Nick nailed it. It is a very comprehensive answer, but certainly making the investments today that'll that'll make you into a great community that will make those companies want to be here, and creating the infrastructure as far as the roads and the schools and the water and the sewer and the electrical and everything else to have that. But then also the workforce training to make sure that your workforce is ready, starting with elementary schools and having great schools all the way through, and having great partners in the university and the community colleges and the workforce development centers. And so it is a very complex answer, and we are trying to do all of the above to be ready for that kind of explosive growth.
So just, to answer the question, as specifically as I can. So there are things that are being done from the community college level and the university level. So there was a Go Virginia grant awarded to Germanna Community College, and I believe UMW is partnered on that as well for the tech talent pipeline. So what they're doing is creating a curriculum that accelerates the availability for individuals to get an associate's degree or some sort of certification in the IT field or in that high-tech field. So there are things that are being done. The other part of it, where we could, as a region, make an investment is probably at the K through 12 level, especially in STEM or STEAM, however you value it. So that's definitely things that we're looking at in King George, and how we can leverage what we currently have in the community to sort of get to that, pipeline for our rural community in general, because we have, I know just in my community, there's probably hundreds of STEM jobs that are open just because we can't fill them as a region right now, especially in math, engineering, and science. So it's definitely an issue, and it's definitely on all our radars. It's a big task to take on to address all that.
So I think you've covered that question pretty well. Two quick things I'll add is, one is that there are incredible adult learning opportunities at University of Mary Washington, at Germanna, other places. Even if you're mid-career, don't be intimidated to go and continue to build skills towards this new economy. There is opportunity. It isn't something that requires someone who's already out in industry to go and spend years and hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition. There are shortcuts. And if you're a parent of a child, I would just recommend, as passionately as you enroll them in soccer camp or in ballet classes or other things, there are incredible youth programs to get kids excited about tech from the very beginning. The Cyber Bytes Foundation right here in the area runs a lot of good programs if you're looking for a potential resource. But get that next generation excited and engaged. If they're not already, they're probably already on their smartphones 24/7. But you get the idea. What I'd like to do in the last few minutes here is do just a really quick round robin with our panelists, and then a few of us need to follow to where John headed earlier for the ribbon cutting, and then I'm going to hand off to Rachel Newberry to cover just the last few minutes of content about how can you get engaged in the community, what entrepreneurship really looks like, how you can be either an active participant or a supporter in some way. But before we do that, Glenn, if you're still online, maybe I'll start with you. In a minute or less, what are you most excited about right now looking forward? And then I'll ask the same question to each of our panelists.
I'm really looking forward to the opportunity that really exists uniquely in this area of the country, where you're so close to an area of great expansion, have high quality of life, and have the ability to be able to tap into skills that, for example, that Tom and Carolyn and others are bringing to the area. I think that it's probably a renaissance, and I want to thank you very much for having me here to help at the very beginning of that renaissance. I think that it's a day we'll all remember.
Thank you, Glenn. How about Scott? Scott, what are you most excited about looking forward?
I'm most excited about the accessibility of really things we considered too advanced before, like AI or machine learning, or how accessible that is to average entrepreneurs and software developers, and their ability to explain it to one another. YouTube world, Twitch world, everything is accessible. If you want to know it, there's no barrier.
Thank you. And I think we'll prove we're not just average entrepreneurs, but exceptional entrepreneurs when we use those tools. So fantastic. Thanks for that. Bill?
I'm just most excited about the pandemic starting to come to an end, knock on wood, and just things getting back to the way of life that we knew, but also employing many of the lessons that we learned during the pandemic, specifically a lot of the technological lessons that we learned and advancements that we made, and carrying those advancements into a more normalized world. I think that good days are ahead.
Yeah, very exciting. All right, Nick, let's close us out.
Yep. So I think that this region has a ton of intellectual capital and just workforce capital. So I'm very excited that this initiative, I think, will leverage that, right, and we'll be able to show off what it is that this region is, from a technology standpoint and from an intellectual capital standpoint. So that's what I'm excited about.
Good stuff. Glad to hear we have a positive future. I truly do believe that. I'm excited about it myself, if you couldn't pick up on that directly. Rachel, I'm going to hand over to you. Rachel has architected many of our programs, in fact, almost all of our programs. She's been involved in entrepreneurship her entire career. This is the 4th accelerator program that she's been involved in, and I'll let her describe what that is. But she's worked in the nonprofit space and private equity and education, academia. So you're in for a real treat for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll be on to our ribbon cutting. So Rachel, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks so much, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Again, I'm Rachel Newberry, the program director at RIoT. I have the privilege of kind of closing us out here before the ribbon cutting. So hang on the line if you're joining us virtually, and you'll get to see the smart test bed open up. But before then, I want to just address a couple of things that we heard this morning. We heard a lot about how technology is driving the economy and this new kind of data age that we're moving into. And that's really exciting that we have these massive technologies at our fingertips that are approaching low cost, that are accessible, that we can leverage to solve problems more efficiently and effectively than we ever have before. But fundamentally, business is about solving problems, and solving problems that the market cares about and that customers will pay for. And business is about being able to reach those customers and drive revenue and stay close to your market so that you can navigate shifts like COVID to continue to solve customer problems. So a lot of what RIoT does is help entrepreneurs to stay closely tied to those business fundamentals and understand that they're solving problems for their customers and understand how to reach their customers and go to market and bring forth technology solutions that are really relevant. And we have seen a lot of value in collaboration. We heard a lot this morning about how critical collaboration is, and not just being able to leverage technology, but also to have the kind of human connectivity that it takes to bring successful, sustainable businesses to every community. So one of RIoT's primary activities is the RIoT Accelerator program. And accelerator might be a new unfamiliar term for many folks. And really, I want us to think about it as collaboration infrastructure. So an accelerator program fundamentally provides the access to resources, whether that's technical tools, mentorship, business partners, just connections to people in general. It provides that structure for an entrepreneur to come in, work intensively on their business for a 12-week period, and get plugged into that network so that they can access the right resources to grow. I'll give one example of a company called Greenstream Technologies that is based out of Norfolk, Virginia. And they came through the RIoT Accelerator program a couple of years ago. And they have an environmental monitoring solution. They use technology to detect flood water. And they were coming to us with a prototype of this device and had a long way to go. So they had a great technology solution, and they were looking for support with getting their technology to a point of sophistication that they could really deploy in the market. They were looking for connections to customers and help strategizing around their go-to-market plan. And if you can imagine, an entrepreneur needs all sorts of things. You need connections to customers. In Greenstream's case, they were looking for connections to the right technology tools to build their device to a greater level. They needed connections to the wireless certification and testing processes that are necessary to bring a device like that to market. They're looking for talent, how to build out their team and bring on people that can help them to build the physical device. They're looking for sales support and how to connect into municipal government, for example, so that the municipal governments can do better emergency management with their flood monitoring device. So all sorts of needs, a long list of needs in order to grow their business to the next level. And again, entering into an accelerator program provides that collaboration infrastructure. So we were able to help them connect with the right technology mentors to solve some of their current technical challenges. We connected them with the wireless testing and certification that they needed to get their product approved to go to market. We connected them with municipal government leadership to pilot their solution to monitor floods in real time and help support emergency management. So we are really excited to be able to bring this kind of collaboration infrastructure to the region and leverage the assets that are here. Glenn spoke to the things that exist in this region. You heard from Bill and others on the panel, the other great organizations that are supporting entrepreneurship and small businesses here in the region. And RIoT can help to kind of coalesce all of these great resources, these great regional assets, and then help entrepreneurs to tap into those resources at the right time. So let me just speak for a moment more about a bit of the details around our program and how we'd like the community to get involved. We run this 12-week accelerator program. We work with typically about 8 startups at one time, and we put them through a curriculum that talks about customer discovery and staying closely engaged with your market so that you're solving the right problem. We talk about business development. What is the right go-to-market strategy? How do you spin up a sales cycle? How do you connect with the right customers and create successful customer relationships? We talk about technology development and plugging in with the right collaborators and subject matter experts so that you're not building something in a silo. And then we talk about growth. How do you build a team, find the right talent? How do you manage the financial strategy of your company and find funding vehicles like grants or private equity? And then we layer into that curriculum a significant amount of mentorship. And that comes from RIoT, certainly, but it also comes from the broader community. So today we're really interested in connecting with folks that are willing to spend some time and give their expertise to companies that are growing in the region. We're also looking for folks that have, specific expertise that they can teach on, that really kind of supplement these founders and kind of help them to fill in the gaps. So if you're someone that is interested in investing in the community, and it's extremely important to have local resources that can give their time and expertise to these up-and-coming companies, please reach out and connect with us. We're really looking forward to building out this collaboration infrastructure, creating greater human connectivity as we move out of the pandemic and help to grow businesses regionally. And then we're also extremely excited to be able to connect entrepreneurs to the testbed asset that Stafford is creating. So this is an extremely valuable technical asset, particularly as startups are building smart city solutions, to have a place to land, to pilot their technology, to kind of work out the kinks, to collaborate with Stafford, to ensure that they're solving the right problem with the right technical solution. And so this is just another great example of a strong asset that is being built here in the region that is going to support entrepreneurs and their go-to-market path for years to come. So I think we're about at time where we'll flip over to witness the ribbon cutting for the Smart City Testbed in Stafford. Thank you so much for joining us online, and I hope you'll stick around, and we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for hanging on the line. The live stream will be up in just a couple of moments. So just hang on one moment.
staff that helped pull all this together with a partnership with Center for Innovative Technologies, our Parks and Recreation staff, our IT staff, virtually every department stepped in to make this possible. And also special thanks to Center for Innovative Technologies that was the funding and driving force behind this test bed, and with the partnership with OST and all the other partners that John will mention in a minute. But thank you all for being here. So it was about 2.5 years ago when I walked in an event, a conference. You remember those in person? I saw Mike there, and I didn't know he was going to be there. And then he introduced me to a gentleman by the name of Dave Erie, who you heard just a moment ago. And we started talking about the vision that Dave and CIT had for testing and deployment of smart technology. Then we started discussing the visions.
Hi, everyone. We are aware that there are some audio issues, and it's on the live streaming side, so sorry about that.
Glad to welcome you all here in live person. I welcome you today to the ribbon cutting for Virginia's Smart Community Test Bed here in Stafford County. This day represents the opening and kickoff of exciting opportunities right here in the county that I grew up in. We will continue to have the opportunity to work with CIT, OST, and others to develop new innovative technologies, and also have the opportunity to encourage new innovative business expansions right here where we call home. I would like to take a moment to recognize several of my colleagues. Supervisor Cindy Shelton from the Aquia District, which is where we're located right now. Can you please raise your hand? Supervisor Meg Bomke, who's always with a lot of people. She knows everybody. She's the Falmouth supervisor right here in the middle. I also see not too far from her Supervisor Judenheffer from the Garrisonville District. And my other colleague from Griffiths Water, Supervisor Tanisha Allen. There she is right over here. So thank you to my colleagues for joining us today on this momentous occasion. And now it is with great pleasure that I get to introduce Mr. Bob Stoley, the President and CEO of the Center of Innovative Technology, CIT, who have been amazing partners with Stafford County through this entire launch. Mr. Stoley?
Thank you very much, Chairman Vanouche, Congressman Whitman, Secretary Ball. Wow, is it great to look out and see faces. Some of them are so familiar from the screen, but I realize I haven't seen in a year. So it's phenomenal. But on behalf of Virginia's Innovation Partnership Authority and CIT, it's an honor for me to be here on a really exciting day for Virginia. The new authority, the VIPA, is not yet a year old, but despite many challenges over the last year, it's been an incredibly productive year across many areas of innovation and commercialization, and this Smart Communities Testbed is a great example. The VIPA was created for collaboration, and the testbed is just an enormous collaborative effort. Of course, that includes Stafford County. I'm going to join the chorus of people saying thank you. but Stafford County, from the Board of Supervisors and the Executive's Office to Economic Development, the CTO, the CIO, the Tourism and Public Works, and just at all levels, we've been welcomed with open arms and enormous support. So thank you very much to Stafford. We're delighted to be partnered with you. The technology for the test bed, as you've already heard from some of our tech partners, was created by the folks that you're meeting here today, and you have opportunities to learn more about the specific technologies that are enabling a lot of the smart communities. But I want to specifically thank the partnership with ATA, who also works closely with us on our UMS program, but Mutual Link, Enclave, OST, and Verizon, along with our community partners. And you've heard RIoT, Smart City Works, and Stafford Printing. Thank you very much. This wouldn't be happening without your innovation. From our team, I also want to say thank you to our CTO, Dave Erie. Dave has led our efforts in smart communities, as well as other strategic initiatives, including unmanned systems, and a major partnership with the Department of Homeland Security that he mentioned earlier, which has helped to fund several of the technologies that you'll see in the test bed today. Thank you, Dave, and thank you to DHS. The key to a successful smart community, as David mentioned down the hill, is that it's community-driven innovation. That's really why the partnership with Stafford is so important. We're not here to tell you what you should do or what technologies you ought to implement or what it ought to look like. We are here working with communities that have issues that are important to you and priorities that are important to your citizens. We want to find what's the best fit for each community across the Commonwealth. So I'm delighted to be in Stafford this morning for this ribbon cutting of the Virginia Smart Community Test Bed. However, we hope that the impact goes well beyond Stafford and throughout the Commonwealth and even beyond. And for that perspective, it's my real privilege to introduce Virginia's Secretary of Commerce and Trade, the Honorable Brian Ball.
Okay, if you want to say something, please be sure to unmute your. And if you're not talking, please be sure to stay muted. And so, golly day, I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to be here before you today. And thank you all for coming out. And here we are in person, and we've passed through a very dark time, and we're on the positive end of that. And this is just a great example of the good things that we're starting to do now in person. And it's been a long 15 months, but Virginia is really in a good place, not only compared to our peers around the country, but also around the world. And Bob, thank you for the introduction. It's a delight to be here, and thank you for everything that you and your staff have done at CIT. And VJ, had a nice chat with VJ when we got here, and OST and all the other companies that have been part of what we're here today to celebrate. And Governor Northam has been a passionate advocate for vaccinations. And he and I and Vince Barnett, who's here from DEDP, as well as others, we just got back from Europe on a trade mission, an in-person trade mission. And I can't tell you what a joy and a relief it was to be able to go meet people, to go meet prospects. Europe is not as far along as we are, and you can tell. You can tell in the sense that lots of masking, lots of hand sanitation, things that are appropriate for a relatively unvaccinated population. We were out a week. We got back here. I went into the office yesterday for the first time in over a week. Nobody had a mask on. So when I left, people were wearing masks. So it just, we all owe ourselves the round of applause for having endured through this mess. We are very focused in this administration on our economy, and we've never lost focus on that throughout this term and throughout this pandemic. but we recognize it's not adequate to just say we're going to get back to where we were pre-pandemic. We know moving forward, some things have changed in profound ways and have changed forever. So, for example, remote work will make us rethink where we work, how many days, if any, that we come to the office, how and when we commute, and where people choose to live, where they decide they want to live, and so it raises lots of questions. One of which is the pressing need for broadband. Remote working is going to require ubiquitous broadband, and I see Congressman Whitman to my right, and I know he's been a champion of that for his district and for the country. And it's not an option anymore; it's an absolute necessity. It's not fair to children, businesses to be in situations where they don't have access to high-speed broadband. Stafford County and Northern Virginia are truly ground zero for where this Commonwealth and this country are headed. And lots of questions come up post-pandemic, and so, again, what we're celebrating here today is so critical to that. But we're going to be asking about creating jobs so people can have good-paying jobs and choose where they live. Can we bring new technologies to bear to improve how our local governments provide services? Can our kids have the skills imparted to them so they can compete in an increasingly complex and challenging marketplace? And most importantly for us is we don't want our graduates. I used to think otherwise when I graduated from college. I thought we got alum all over the world, all over the country. We want them all to stay in Virginia. We want all of our graduates. We have great universities and colleges and community colleges here. We want everybody that wants to stay here to feel like they can get a good, high-paying job, stay here and raise their families. And again, that's what you all are about today. And so that's the reason this test bed is so important. And the value proposition is an enduring one, and it's the goal here is to get our kids involved in this, to help us define the future that we want to have, and let them be part of the planning for the future. And so what's going on here in Stafford with this test bed it'll be an asset, not only for Stafford, but all of Virginia, and frankly, all of the country. And I know we preach in our office collaboration on a daily basis. And so I'm just going to tick off the communities that I'm going to leave somebody out, I'm sure, but Arlington, Ashland, Caroline County, Fairfax, Fredericksburg, Hampton Roads, Harrisonburg, Roanoke, Prince William, Winchester, and if I've left anybody out, just shout out the one I left out, and please accept my apologies. But it is so good to have so many localities around the state involved in this. And so what we want from this test bed, what our goals will be, that every community can participate and come to this to exchange ideas, explore new technologies, and work together to address and resolve the common challenges we all face. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for being here today. And again, it is so good to have an in-person meeting again. I know we've learned, me in particular, learned to do a lot of things with a computer I never dreamed I would ever learn in this lifetime. But it is so good, and even though we'll be able to do things remotely and we'll continue to use Zoom is here to stay, it is so good to be with you all here today. And so congratulations to what you've done here. Congratulations to CIT for being a part of this to make this test bed a reality. And so and thank you very much for letting us chat with you here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary. And now it is my pleasure to introduce one of Stafford County's biggest supporters, hardest workers, and the congressman who literally knows everybody's name. I'm always so impressed by that, Congressman Rob Whitman. Come on over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, folks, good morning. Isn't this a fantastic day? Wow, the weather's great, and the opportunities are now right before us. So, Chairman Vanucci, thank you so much for your leadership. I want to thank the entire Stafford County Board of Supervisors. What incredible vision to make today happen. The first of many great opportunities for this region. Also want to thank, too, Fred Presley, who's the county administrator, has done a great job. John, thank you. Appreciate it. Mike, thank you. Fantastic work. The Virginia Center for Innovative Technology. Bob, thank you. Thanks for all the great work that goes on. Secretary Ball, thank you. Thanks for your leadership. Today is a real example of what it takes to make something like this happen. This is a team effort. There's not just one person that makes today happen. This is a vision that started months and months and months ago with folks across the community. It started with businesses to say, hey, what can we do to really bring forward all the different elements of technology, to bring about those innovators and creators, those folks that have those ideas to be able to make technology work in communities. Today, the Virginia Community Testbed Center that's going to go on here, Smart Community Testbed, is really the foundation of what I think is going to be one of the greatest opportunities, not only for our communities, but for our Commonwealth and for our nation. And it's starting right here in Stafford County to have that vision, the first one here in Virginia. You know, as I talk to folks, a lot of people have very, very groundbreaking ideas about what can we do, how can we make things happen, how can we use the technology that's not only here today, but how can we use the technology that's going to be there a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. It's that vision that really allows communities to make the best of not just technology, but to make the best of economic opportunity. And that's what we see here today. You see all the different vendors that are here, all having different ideas about how to leverage technology to make life in our communities better. And Secretary Ball, you spoke about it. One of those incredibly important parts of that is broadband. You know, we can do a lot of different things. 5G is great, but if you don't have 5G, you know, it's just a concept. I want to make sure that we have broadband in every corner, not just of the 1st District, but of Virginia. And today's effort, I believe, is one of those conduits that will make that happen. As you know, the elements of technology are what we need in order to make broadband available quickly and to make it available in every corner of the Commonwealth. If you look at things, too, that can happen with that, you see simple things. What we see in healthcare. You know, think about where we are today with healthcare. Think about the leverage that can come with using a smart bed like we have here to develop technology, to make healthcare better. Let's say that you have a condition, and to really know the best treatment for that condition, it would be preferable to be able to have your condition monitored for 24 hours a day. Yet, in many instances, that just can't happen. You have to go into a facility to have your conditions monitored. New technology, we could have smart monitors out there that are connected to the internet, and guess what? You have constant monitoring of your health condition, which creates better health outcomes and, I believe, creates all kinds of opportunities for our healthcare community. You look at education, things that we can do within education, the things, too, that we can do in normal, everyday parts of life. Think about how you can use sensors to get information about things. I mean, we all see smart homes today, but think about what you could do there. The possibilities are endless, and being able to leverage technology in a concentrated and focused way like this Virginia Community Smart Community Testbed is really going to be, I believe, the wave of the future. You know, we are incredibly blessed here in the Commonwealth to have not only our natural resources, but our human resources. I think our Commonwealth has the best workforce anywhere in the country. And just think about this region, too. Think about the folks that serve today in the military. Think about the folks that are there in the civilian sector that also help the military. Think about the technology that's developed there. Think about those individuals, too, that decide, well, I am going to retire. What am I going to do? And I see Colonel Bentley there in the back. Colonel Bentley's there from Quantico. Colonel Bentley, thanks so much for your service there as the base commander at Quantico. But a great example about how you take those resources and bring them to bear in the area, to bring those human resources, that brain power, that innovative and creative skills that can be used, again, in this smart community test bed. So, folks, today is an exciting day. All of us will be able to look back on today and remember the beginning of great things here for the Stafford community, for our Commonwealth of Virginia, and for our nation. And we know that it's because of folks that have a whole variety of different ideas but are willing to come together, state, local, private, and say, you know what? We can do something that's bigger than any single one of us or any single entity. Today is the beginning of that great journey, that great effort that I know will make life better for citizens not only here in Stafford, but across the Commonwealth and across the nation. Folks, thanks again. I wish each of you God's blessings. May God bless our great Commonwealth of Virginia. May God bless our United States of America.
Thank you, Representative Whitman. Appreciate your remarks. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Bo Machado from Senator Warner's office, and he'll offer some of the senator's thoughts as well. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. I don't know everyone's name like Congressman Whitman, so you got to forgive me, but we'll definitely do some introductions after this. Thank you, Secretary Ball. Thank you, folks at CIT. Thanks, folks here at Stafford. And I'd be remiss not to thank our General Assembly in Virginia as well. So Delegate Alfonso Lopez, thank you so much for the partnership that you've made this possible as well. So you've heard a lot about from other speakers on the technologies of the test bed, how they spur our economy, how they build partnerships, how they support military readiness and capacity. So I don't want to repeat any of those things, but I want to focus on a topic that Senator Warner has been a key element of Senator Warner's work in Congress: the ability to compete with the potential international adversaries on key emerging areas of technology. We are facing unprecedented threats as countries like China rapidly improve their technology and industry, and we need to find ways to maintain our technology edge as we preserve our political, innovative, and economic leadership. Most importantly, as we see China's efforts to lead and advance infrastructure investments, not only domestically, but across the globe, like the Belt and Road Initiative, the U.S. needs to offer technological solutions like smart cities that ensure our values, including transparency, open competition, and a respect for individual privacy. It's hard not to see the signs of competition. In cybersecurity, ransomware was responsible for the Colonial Pipeline outage and a threat to our critical infrastructure. Only weeks after NASA successfully deployed first drone on Mars, China last week landed their own robotic explorer there. The supply of things from automobiles to refrigerators is threatened by a shortage of semiconductor chips, as most of the production has moved overseas in recent decades. And in areas such as quantum computing, artificial intelligence, and virtual reality, losing our technological leadership could be devastating. We need to do better in harnessing the great innovation engine of our university system, private companies, entrepreneurs that advance and solidify the United States leadership in scientific and technological innovation. It's clear we need investments in discovery, creation, manufacturing of technology critical to U.S. national security and economic competitiveness. And fortunately, there's bipartisan legislation that Senator Warner is leading in Congress to do just that, called the Endless Frontiers Act. It'll help ensure the new research investment translates to American industries and manufacturing and high-tech jobs in regions across the country to become global centers of emerging technologies. It looks like technology products and enhance individual community well-being, deepen trust, and incorporate strong cybersecurity from the very outset. In the past 6 years or so, we've seen firsthand how destabilizing poor designed and poorly managed technological products can be, whether the social media technology that circulates and amplifies disinformation, insecure IT products whose susceptibility to ransomware paralyzes entire markets and systems, or data brokers hovering up sensitive data on Americans without their consent or knowledge. In fact, it looks very much like what we're here today. The Virginia Smart Community Testbed, funding from the Department of Homeland Security, the Commonwealth, existing partners, with a great Virginia universities like Germanic Community College, to help build our workforce. Many commercial companies working together to build a secure digital infrastructure, taking advantage of the Internet of Things, drones, help improve our competitiveness, and technologies like 5G and virtual reality and alike. Senator Warner wishes this testbed endeavor a great success and hopes that it will provide a model for what a national technology hub can be. one that creates commercial success while helping advance our country's global competitive technology. Thanks so much.
All right, and bringing us home before we throw the doors open, it's my pleasure finally to introduce my good friend, our Virginia Homeland Security Advisor and the Deputy Secretary of the Department of Public Safety and Homeland Security, Mr. Sean Talmadge.
Thank you, Dave, for that kind introduction. Yes, indeed, a great friend, and I've enjoyed our relationship over the past couple of years. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd encourage you to kind of take a look across the audience and just, appreciate the partnerships of government at the local, state, and federal level, our private sector and other organizations, and how we can solve complex problems together. It was just about a year ago that the likes of Secretary Ball's office, my office, VEDP, we faced the challenge of developing solutions to gain access to critical needs for the COVID crisis. Through our partnerships with industry and the private sector, we successfully gained access to important things like hand sanitizer and personal protective equipment. And so today, my comments are really about partnerships and how we can best leverage them in the success that we'll see and this test bed is just one of the great examples thereof. For public safety organizations across the Commonwealth, we recognize innovation and technology is crucial as we develop into the future because it makes us smarter, it makes us more efficient and more effective. We learned early on we needed an advocate, someone to help us understand technology, and that's why we partnered with the Center for Innovative Technology. And we ventured in a number of activities to help public safety leverage technology across the Commonwealth. One of those programs was a partnership with Department of Homeland Security S&T, and I understand Major General retired Bob Newman somewhere in the back. I want to thank him for being here today and all the support that he's done. A proud Virginian, a former Adjutant General of the National Guard, so thanks for being here today. But part of that funding helped us develop new sensors and platforms that were installed at the George Mason University Eagle Bank Arena. And there, about 2 years ago, I attended an active shooter training event. That same technology has been used to help reopen the Capital One Arena in D.C. Just in time for the hockey and basketball playoffs. These same sensors will be used and installed right here at this test bed. CIT has also helped us position the state as #1 in the nation for unmanned systems, unmanned aerial systems. So I'd encourage everyone to take a look at one of the leaders in the Commonwealth for unmanned aerial systems and public safety, and that's right here, the Stafford County Sheriff's Department under leadership of Captain Ben Worcester. Again, that partnership with these innovative teams, such as here in Stafford County, is critical to ensuring public safety and improving our effectiveness and efficiency. Now, our Virginia Department of Emergency Management and the Center for Innovative Technologies are collaborating to deploy a number of low-cost flood sensors to communities across the Commonwealth. And again, these sensors will improve our ability to make decisions to better protect our public and understand when best we need to implement a sheltering or evacuation plan or to proactively close roads that are prone to flooding. And again, I could go on with all these different technology developments and the partnerships across the Commonwealth. But Dave has asked me to announce another incredible initiative. The Public Safety Innovation Center, sponsored by the Center for Innovative Technology, will ensure that a very productive relationship will remain between technology innovation and our public safety first responders across the Commonwealth. They'll be able to deploy some of the most cutting-edge technology to our first responder community. And I understand that CIT has engaged another leader in the Commonwealth, Deputy Chief Chris Sadler from York County, to partner with the Public Safety Innovation Center to ensure that the center can develop technology that best meets public safety, fire, EMS, hazardous material response, law enforcement, and of course, port security, given the very large, Hampton Roads, Port of Virginia facilities that are so important to Virginia, but also our nation. The PSIC will be a virtual organization bringing together a wide set of existing resources, and of course, the Virginia Smart Community Testbed will serve as an important foundational element of that initiative. So again, Dave, I'm going to turn it back. I'm eager to see what else is on the agenda today, and ladies and gentlemen, it is absolutely an honor to be here today, and thank you for having me.
All right, with that, I think we're going to get a group photo and actually cut the ribbon. Who from Stafford has the ribbon? We have a ribbon coming, all right. So if we can get our speakers to come back up here as well for a photo.
Can all of my colleagues come up here as well? Cindy, Tanisha, Mark, Meg.